Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about learning to let go of exercises that are no longer making you stronger. Because as the great coach Louis Simmons says, there's no point in getting stronger on the wrong exercises. And I know that might sound contradictory, especially coming from someone like me who says stronger is stronger. And if you just get stronger in general, everything will work out. But I think there comes a point where we have to understand that when we say that, we're talking about a variety of max effort lifts, right? We're talking about a variety of max effort lifts in that if you get really strong on a box squat, if your 1 rep max gets really, really strong on, say, a box squat against chains, you're probably going to be a strong squatter, okay? If you get a really strong sumo deadlift or even a 1-inch sumo block pull, you're probably going to be strong at pulling in general. That's the idea. So when we say just get all around strong, we're talking about on 20 or 30 or 40 different max effort movements. But when it comes to our different supplemental lifts, these are exercises that we do to hypertrophy all the muscles in our body, to build our strength potential and to shore up our weak links. Right? Because if you find your weak links on any of these movements, and you hypertrophy those weak links, your strength potential is going to go up. What do I mean by that? I don't care which of your squats you're looking at. If you're looking at any form of squat and it turns out that your glutes are the weak link in your squat, if you build your glutes up, you're going to get generally stronger. Because if it's a weak link on one of your squats, then it's probably a weak link on all of your squats. We do all these different movements to test these things to find them. If your triceps are a weak link on your closed grip bench press or your floor press, they're probably a weak link in general. Therefore, if you spend a bunch of time building up your triceps, you're probably going to get all around stronger. So that's what I mean by get good, get strong at all these different movements. You find the different weak links and you strengthen them. It's why we want to be really good at maxing out on quite a few different lifts. It gives us a lot of data to look at, and it gets us used to just being strong through different movement patterns all the time. But when it comes to selecting our movements, here's what we have to remember. Not everything always carries over. And if we're using a variety of max effort movements and we are doing supplemental lifts and we're getting stronger and stronger at those supplemental lifts and we stop getting stronger at the stuff that we're maxing on, that's not good. All right? Perfect example, the two exercises I was showing early on. Hip thrust, glute bridges, I've built an enormous strength base on those. And as I was bringing them up, I used the hip thrust to largely increase my squat. It was one of my most important hypertrophy exercises for the squat. My squat was coming along. However, then my squat stalled a bit. I started running into some different muscle weaknesses on my squatting. Started running into a need to get stronger out of the very bottom of the squat, getting weaker at the bottom, getting weaker at hitting depth. Quad weaknesses, things like that started to develop. I continued to hit PRs on the hip thrust. Right, so I started missing squats, yet my 5x10 was up another 20 pounds on the hip thrust. I worked it up. It's at that point to where you look at it and say, I keep hitting PRs on this movement, but my squat and deadlift variations, not even the classic lifts, even the variations have stalled or even regressed a small amount. Therefore, this exercise is no longer making me stronger. Why am I still doing it? And this is where we have to be honest with ourselves about that. And I get a lot of people like, why do you rotate out of movement, Jason? Why do you do that? What's the point? Like, if it's a good exercise, it's a good exercise. No, it's a good exercise if it's addressing what you need it to address. And as long as your PRs are going up on your 20 different movements that you max out on, because you don't know how strong you are if you're not maxing out regularly. So you guys need to forget that nonsense. You do not know if you are getting stronger until you are testing it. So let's come over to the point. if we're just getting stronger at the supplemental lifts that we're best at, and we're just getting stronger and stronger in the muscles that are already our strong links, we're not doing ourselves that many favors, because that's not how we get stronger overall. The fastest way to get stronger is to find the weakest muscles in your body and to work the holy hell out of them. Okay? And you find the weakest muscles in your body by finding the weak links in big lifts and big lift variations. That's the best way to do it. Okay, if your triceps are one of the weaker muscles in your whole body, you will get stronger across the board if you work on your triceps. If your hamstrings are a weak link in your body, putting way more effort into your hamstrings will make you stronger across the board. And if the lifts you're doing are not serving that purpose, then they're not helping you. They're not a good use of your resources. And I say, as a general rule, our weak links need to take up anywhere from 30 to 50% of our training time. Whatever the weakest, smallest muscles are in your body in terms of your strength overall need to comprise 30 and as much as 50% of your training time need to be working those muscles. That is the fastest way to gain strength, to hyper-focus on your weak links. That's the best use of your resources. You will gain the most strength across the board if you do that. And so again, like I'm doing here with these inclines, if you're getting stronger at incline presses and your bench is not going up, that's a problem. And yes, you can determine that pretty quick. You can determine that very, very quickly. What do I mean? Let's say benching. Let's say your closed grip bench or medium grip pause bench against 40 pounds of chains, right? It doesn't even have to be your bench. If you test that and it's at a certain level and you work the incline bench really hard for 5 weeks, or the overhead press really hard for 5 weeks, and your 10 rep maxes go up 10 pounds, 15 pounds, and you come back and next time you hit that exact medium grip bench against 40 pounds of chains, if it does not PR, or the same weight moves slower, or your max is down 5 pounds, you have gotten weaker. And if you've gotten weaker, those exercises are not making you stronger. And if you don't increase, they're not making you stronger. Why would you waste your time on movements that are not making you stronger? It's a waste of time. They're clearly not addressing your weak links correctly in terms of your musculature. You need to find the movements that address your weakest links more. And so for me, that's one of the things I've pointed out with people. There's no correlation between my overhead press strength and my bench. I've had people say, oh, you can't just quit. I can build my overhead press at the drop of a hat. I can take 3 months off from overhead pressing, train it for a month with volume, and come in and press 225. Okay. My strongest bench in my life was in my 20s, and I had a lower overhead press than I do now. I've gone through phases where I've put 20 pounds on my max on my overhead press, 15 pounds on my 10 rep sets, and my bench has not gone up a single pound. So for me, for example, and I've had to admit that and accept that, the overhead press does not make me stronger at pressing in general. It just makes me stronger at overhead pressing. It's one of my strong suits. I can build my overhead press very, very quickly anytime that I want. It doesn't have to stay a staple in my training. And it certainly doesn't increase my bench, and my bench is my weakest link. Out of all the classic lifts, bench press is my personal weak link by a pretty large metric. Stronger at everything else, every form of squat, deadlift, overhead press, crush my bench. So I would look at that and say, well, in that case, you probably should work more on the bench and find the movements that increase the bench. And if they don't increase the bench in their upper body movements, maybe they're not a good allocation of resources. So in that case, it doesn't even make sense for me to be doing overhead press. If I want a stronger overhead press again, I can train it and have it back in no time. Don't be afraid to drop movements that are not making you stronger. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.